Hi guys, welcome to Clockwork Noodles, the channel where we continue to approach the end of the season now. We are fastly approaching. However, for To Your Eternity, there are indeed 20 episodes. We are on episode 10. We are roughly halfway through. This anime continues into summer, so we have nothing to worry about. This anime is going to be there for a little bit longer, and I'm so glad that we have more episodes to enjoy. There is a video going up in 4 days' time where you get to see my top 3 anime of this season. What are the 3 anime I have picked for the best, and what anime have I picked to break down next season. So I go through in that video all of the anime coming out, all the anime I plan to watch, and all of the anime that I plan to break down on the channel. So lots of fun things coming your way. Make sure you are subscribed so you get notified whenever videos go up on the channel, and there is a Discord channel too if you want to go ahead and lurk. Let's jump straight into it because episode 10 has it's got a few different little surprises that I weren't expecting, but there's some really good stuff going on this episode. And the narrator is the one who ends up kicking it all off by telling us that the freedom of choice should belong to anybody. So everybody should have the ability to make their own decisions, which I think is very important to what happens later on. And it's nice just to see that that's what he believes. So we understand a bit more about the narrator. We are back into it. We're back with Fushi versus the Shadow. This shadow does take on a name a little bit later on, but I want to say something about the name that they end up giving it a little bit later on. But up until this point, we know that we've lost March's form, but we are a little bit ahead. So last time we stood against the shadow, Fushi wasn't able to summon things. We do see he tries to make a barrier of spears to protect Gugu. His main key point during this entire initial fight is protecting Gugu, because we know that at this point Fushi really does love his brother. I'm gonna call them brothers now. They're brothers from another mother, but they're brothers nonetheless. But it is this worry about Gugu which actually ends up losing Fushi another form. About 4 minutes into the episode, we'd already lost 2 of our forms. Things were not looking good for him whatsoever. Where it's Gugu who starts to wonder if he's able to do anything. I did wonder if the narrator would be able to interfere. Was the narrator able to do anything? There's also a point when there's a lantern in a rock which Gugu finds. I do wonder if the narrator was able to put it there, or why that lantern is there in the first place. I'm not quite sure if it's explained why it happened to be there, but it's that which actually gives Gugu the idea that he might be able to spit out fire. Sadly, Gugu ended up throwing up. I think if his body comes under too much pressure, he ends up throwing up the contents of his stomach, as we would if we were normal people would just throw up. Gugu just releases all of that alcohol. So this is what actually gets him to go, okay, I need to get some more. But it's a nice 360 of us seeing the one thing that Gugu really hated. He could not get over the fact that he had an alcohol distillery in his stomach. It's now the thing that he realises could become a strength. It's the thing that could allow him to protect what is most important to him. Seeing Fushi as a very angry wolf is absolutely adorable. I love it to pieces. I'm also happy that he's able to talk in the wolf form, but I'm also very impressed that that is the case. But it's the threat. It's the threat that I will bite you if you come back. I like this so much. It's the I'm going to try and do everything myself, I'm going to try and protect you, but at the end of the day it's a 360 of what actually really happens, where Gugu is the one who ends up protecting Fushi. Gugu ends up getting slightly intoxicated because he's thrown up all of the alcohol, where I was very shocked that he could become drunk. So he kind of becomes drunk. We see his vision go into blur and he starts to go bright pink. But I guess if it's in his stomach, it's not really being absorbed into his body, so he hasn't really got a natural immunity to it. Maybe eventually he will be able to have that immunity because his body will just get used to having alcohol in it 24/7. But at this point, I guess, because it's quite new, I think he's been in this form for not too long, but at least long enough for not to have got the immunity to alcohol. Rin's family end up coming back to try and get her back. But it's very, very poor timing because Gugu even promised Fushi, I will be with you in 5 minutes. I don't think it ends up being 5 minutes. He does actually end up being quite late. So I like the fact the anime doesn't try to extort the time and go, oh, it's still happening in 5 minutes. It's just really slow timing. No, it does seem that time does pass at natural speed in the anime. The longer he spends with Booze Man to give him some alcohol, it's all just time that Fushi hasn't really got, because things don't go so well for Fushi this episode. Things really don't go well. As I predicted, Rin's parents don't listen to Rin. They kind of turn it on Gugu initially. I think it's the dad who kind of blames Gugu for misleading his daughter. He believes that this is the person who has made you like this. You know, you were not raised like this. You must be this must be his fault. But at this point, Gugu is not in the best state to be meeting the parents. It's a bit too soon for that. He is completely drunk, and the drunken antics really do not make a good impression upon anybody. But actually, it's thanks to Piran, who is a bit of a unsung hero this episode, who starts to understand what Gugu's trying to do, because he does say, oh, Fushi's in a forest, boom, kapow. And she's like, wait, it's the forest. And last time they were in a forest and Fushi was there, because she knows that Fushi is terrified of the forest. Something bad happened. We do get a bit of a red flag where Boozman tells us that there's been some internal damage done, which may result in death if Gugu continues the way he does. This could end up being a red flag. However, the anime this week is actually better than I thought, and it's actually one of those very rare episodes where everything looks like it could go horrifically wrong, but it doesn't. Rin again tells everybody that she really wants her freedom and she does not want to go home, but it's all just taking up Fushi's time. But we get to find out that it's not just the case that the parents are being overbearing, they've even picked out a fiance. Up until this point, I was like, they're just overbearing parents. This is the bad point. It's like you're forcing her to marry somebody she probably doesn't want to do. She's like 10 or something, and they're trying to give her a boyfriend, a partner at this point. It's a bit too early and she's not even had the choice. This is the reason where I finally go, okay, that's overstepping the boundary. You don't make that decision for somebody. Gugu, in his beautiful drunken antics, because it is a bit of Dutch courage, he tells Rin he is the one who loves her the most and vanishes off into the darkness, where Piran, again the unsung legend of the episode, stops everybody from leaving. Thankfully so, because it is definitely dangerous to leave. I did wonder if it was the case that she's just trying to stop them from leaving because of how dangerous it is. The fact that she learns about the forced marriage, something that ends up being the last straw on the back that actually snaps her patience, because she does seem very angry when she says to the dad, isn't the problem the fact that you don't see a problem? Because you're seeing there be as no problem, but it's because you're overlooking everything. That's initially the actual problem. Fushi ends up losing his bear form and his wolf form, but he is absolutely nowhere to be seen when Gugu finally arrives on the site, and we get into quite a nice little Shadow versus Gugu moment. But this is where Gugu finally replays and replicates the OP, where we saw a fire breather, which is definitely Gugu, breathing and finally now having a new power to his command. He is becoming a fire breather, my friends, a firebender. But this is also the perfect element to defeat the shadow, which we are told takes on the form of wood. So fire versus wood, especially if that wood is dry, is going to burn up quite quickly. We do see Rin showing some concern for Gugu as everyone sees the entire forest on fire. You might be in with a chance there, but at the end of the episode, she does go back to wondering where Fushi is. But I was wondering where Fushi was, and Fushi apparently having no forms left, I was wondering if he was just sat as an orb somewhere. It's similar. He isn't too far from that orb version. The victor out of the Shadow versus Gugu ends up being Gugu beating this form, and we see all of the forms starting to take on that white ethereal energy again and finding their way back to where Fushi is. And Fushi is in a form that I completely forgot he could do. He is his first form, the rock, where he was sat there as a rock. He grew some moss on him. But it is something I completely did not consider, so I'm happy that that is the way that ends up doing it. But his rock form was what probably saved him, where Fushi and Gugu have a heartfelt reunion, and it's just such a good touching moment. But we do see that the narrator didn't interfere, so perhaps he doesn't have the ability to interfere. He can't interfere. Although I think he probably would if he could, because he doesn't seem like a bad guy at all. But he did watch the entire scenario play out, and he realises how important Gugu is to Fushi. The music now swelling, the use of the swell as well, building up our hope, building into the major key, as Fushi is transferred back into his wolf form, and Fushi repays his promise of biting Gugu because he came back. It's touching. I really like it. I knew he was going to bite him. I was just waiting for it. But these two really are just brothers from different parents, and they are a family. They've got the stronger bonds than real family could ever have. And it's actually quite a nice ending. And for To Your Eternity, which has been bringing the pain first season, this is a really nice 3-6, a happy episode, a happy ending. Nobody during this period has died. But the craziest family is generally the best family. They may not be related by blood, but they have bonds that bind them, which grow very deep. Even Beer Geezer at this point as well, he ends up being accepted as Beer Geezer, and Gugu hasn't forgiven him, but he as well doesn't want to hold any hate towards the guy. He also realizes is that what Beer Geezer did is the reason why he was able to protect his brother, the person who really means the most to him. Rin's family is also present during this point as well, which is a surprise in itself. I didn't expect them to stay there overnight. I guess there's rooms in this tower, there's enough space to do that. But they do end up complimenting Gugu's cooking, which is quite nice. So this might be the change of tides for Rin. Things might eventually go well. There's a possibility they might actually cancel that marriage that she has lined up. Rin ends up asking where Fushi is, so maybe breaking our boy's heart that she still has her eyes fixed on Fushi. The talk with Fushi and the narrator, a little bit more progress here. Fushi isn't lobbing things at him anymore, but the narrator tells Fushi that he needs to leave. So to get stronger to be able to fight the shadow, because as he is right now, he's not strong enough to win. He needs to essentially not stand still. It's the idea of if you stay still, you're not going to be learning, you're not going to be growing. Now, the name for the shadows, the reason I'm going to keep calling them shadows is he calls the shadows the bringers of destruction of paradise. So they're trying to break paradise. Obviously, his goal is to protect and preserve the world that they're in. This is essentially paradise, and these guys want to destroy it. So they are naturally the enemy of his plan. They are called knockers. And in the UK, knockers is slang for boobs. I mean, I am very happy you made my boy Kenjiro Suda say boobs, but I'm not saying knockers, I'm sorry. I'm going to keep calling them shadows. Fushi is told you need to continue moving on. So I was wondering, what can he learn to become stronger? So is it within him to become strong enough to beat the shadows? So maybe through more forms, more skills, more experience. And the reason why the narrator wants him to move onwards and not stay in one place is because if he stays where he is now, everything's happy, everything's actually peaceful. You're not going to learn during a peaceful patch. There's nothing to learn. It's all happy and unchanging. But he does accept that Fushi needs Gugu, and Fushi even says, I need Gugu in my life. But he does say that he's going to rely on Gugu to destroy the shadows if any more come along. This is risky because there's going to be a point when the shadows outdo Gugu, and there's going to be a point where Gugu will become at risk if Fushi just simply relies on other people to do things for him, because he's also not challenging himself to become stronger. So it is a possibility that he's going to become complacent. The narrator is not seen by Gugu, but I didn't think he would be, so I'm quite impressed that he didn't just vanish out of thin air. He just stayed there to listen to the entire conversation, and then he vanishes. Rin finally decides that it's time to go home, where the talk of fathers and saviors, because Buzgiza is the savior of Gugu, this actually does seem to lead Fushi to start considering his previous encounter with the narrator. Perhaps his creator is similar to the idea of a father or a savior. Fushi is too busy contemplating throughout Rin's departure as Rin finally goes home, where we go to the first time it's happened. It's the first time it's happened within this anime. We get a time skip. We are going 4 years into the future, my friends, and I think someone in the comments did say, I think we're going to be skipping ahead quite a bit. You are correct. Congratulations. We are 4 years ahead now. Gugu grew up to be buff. Man, he is buff. His voice actor obviously has changed, so he's definitely hit puberty at the same time. But Gugu is tall. I did wonder, because there's a little bit in the OP where somebody holding Rin is older than what Gugu appeared, but it has got a face. So in the preview, we see another character coming back from the past. I do think it might be him. So I'm keeping an eye on that, because I've got a theory what might happen to come to that point in the OP. But it is a nice time skip. Allows us to see how Gugu has matured over time. He has grown up with a brother, a stable family. He's finally got a roof over his head, and he no longer hates himself. He actually doesn't hate himself. He's come to peace with who he is, which is a lot better. And we finally get to see that Rin is coming and dropping in as she goes, a bit more freedom. So her encounter with everything, Gugu, the works, it led her to have more freedom. So it ended up turning out to be the best for everybody. Rin, however, looks absolutely no different. So she still looks the same as she did 4 years ago. It's just our boy Gugu who looks buff, and our boy Fushi. Fushi has, of course, had 4 years now to mature, learn, develop, and we've learnt that he is a fantastic cook. He's finally attended the school of good cooking and finally turned away from his toxic ways. But it's definitely a level up to the max because he's finally maxed out a few things. And of course, he started to age up. And the fact that he's got stubble makes me wonder a few things, because he is in the form of the boy who died, and the boy who died before he hit puberty. The fact that Fushi is able to make a form that never hit puberty grow stubble does make me start to question a few things. The fact that he too, as an orb, is able to actually experience growth and his body will act in a similar way to what the human body would have done. We do know that he too has an interest in sewing, so he's still trying to learn absolutely everything he can. But our boy can finally talk. This is something I've been waiting for because the voice actor is relatively new to the voice acting world, so I really wanted to hear more from him. He finally sounds very similar to his role in Shadow's House, another anime I adore this season. If you haven't checked it out, go check that anime out, binge watch it. I am jealous that you get to binge watch it because I have to wait a week between episodes and it's so good. But our boy is in that. He plays Master Patrick, and Patrick is a very different character from Fushi, let's just say that, but it's great to be able to hear him finally talking. Everybody is still together for 4 years later, it's great. So seemingly there's been no more attacks by the boobs. Can I call them boobs? Maybe. The shadow boobs. The shadow boobs have not attacked for 4 years. The narrator seems to have accepted Fushi's plan because he does say as long as you're still, here for the mission, I'm okay with it. Which is, of course, what he said initially to open the episode. He believes in the idea of free will, free choice. So Fushi has the ability to make his decision and he accepts it as essentially a father-type figure. So maybe that's what he's going to grow to be. The age up allows Fushi to become very vocal, which I am so happy, and perhaps more conscious, able to express himself. So maybe the next time the narrator appears, we may get a proper conversation between him and the narrator. Maybe we can get some questions finally directed towards him. This is probably the biggest chunk of experience going his way. So if we were playing the game, we've had the time skip, and all your stats are higher now, you can do more things. The preview, I'll just briefly cover it because I know it's spoilers for most people and most of us don't agree with previews. Gugu and his brother are seen in a preview, so that is something I believe might link to the OP. So we have technically seen this in the OP. There's an older character with a face wearing the same outfit as Gugu in the credits. So I'm wondering if it's going to be Rin and the brother maybe, or if there's going to be an actual very happy ending to this. But it is To Your Eternity. I am at some point expecting it to go horrifically bad at some point because that's the kind of anime this is. But this week it shows us that the anime is able to bring us good things as well. It's able to make us happy. I really enjoyed this week's episode. I loved it to pieces. I was constantly waiting for it to go bad and I am so happy it didn't go bad. But now I'm even more suspicious because it's To Your Eternity. It's the Trauma Monday. Trauma Monday can't be Trauma Monday if there's no trauma. Although I've got to go and watch Fruits Basket, so I'm going into Trauma Monday now. I am very happy to break another anime down with you guys. Make sure you guys do check out my video because I've got 4 animes I think you might be interested in next season. And of course, To Your Eternity is one of those 4 because it continues on. So I will see you guys again next week. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.